Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
One of the scribes came to Jesus and asked him, "Which is the first of all the commandments?" Jesus replied, "The first is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." The scribe said to him, "Well said, teacher. You are right in saying he is the one and there is no other than he. And to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is worth more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." And when Jesus saw that he answered with understanding, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And no one dared ask him any more questions. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
A number of years ago, at a Special Olympics track and field event held in Spokane, the contestants lined up for the start of the 100-yard dash. Well, when the starter's gun was fired, they all got off flying except for one little boy, who kind of tripped over his own feet and trembled to the ground, scraped his arm, and began to cry. And hearing this, two of the other athletes stopped and turned around and went back to where this fallen boy lay. And one girl with Down syndrome bent down and kissed the injured arm. "This will make it better," she said. And with the boy back up on his feet, the three held hands and crossed the finish line together. Well, a somewhat similar event took place in the Madrid Marathon several years ago. 4,000 runners answered the starter's gun. And toward the end of the grueling race, two men were far ahead of the pack. Near the finish line, one of them was suddenly taken with a severe leg cramp and was unable to continue on his own, and whereupon the other leader stopped, picked up the afflicted competitor, and carried him across the finish line. Eric Hoffer, San Francisco's famous longshoreman philosopher, once wrote, "It is easier to love humanity as a whole than to love one's neighbor." It's also been said, if there is a person you cannot love, then you cannot really love anyone. And Jesus' command persists: love one another as I have loved you. In today's gospel, as one of the scribes asks Jesus, "Which is the first of all the commandments?" Jesus answers with a prayer, really, that is on the lips of Jews 7 times every day, unobservant Jews. The Shema. Shema Israel Adonai. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And of course, Jesus went on to say, the second is this: you must love your neighbor as yourself. There's no other commandment greater than these. And interestingly enough, the scribe agrees wholeheartedly, saying, "What you have said is true, sir. To love him with all your heart, with all your understanding and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, this is more important than any holocaust or sacrifice." And when Jesus saw the scribe had answered wisely, he said, "You're not far from the kingdom of God." Notice Jesus does not separate the two great commandments. He combines them. He's saying, in effect, as he says the same thing in other ways in other times, you can't do one without the other. God pours His love into your heart. He asks you to love Him in return. He calls you into union with Himself. He affirms your individual, special, unique worthwhileness, and thus urges you to hold yourself in high esteem. And at the same time, He commands to love your neighbor, to affirm your neighbor's individual, special, unique worthwhileness, and thus hold your neighbor in high esteem. Love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus says. He's telling us that God's love is not subject to limitation, ever. Neither we accept it as universal or we deny it. Because we cannot see ourselves as objects of God's love and therefore love ourselves in this sense if we don't simultaneously love our neighbor for the very same reason. We show the depth of our love for God and the depth of our love for one another. If our concern for our brothers and sisters is shallow, so too is our love for God. It's the unfailing barometer, if you will. And it matters not how often we withdraw to church and offer words of praise and thanks and love to God. Those words won't mean a thing unless they're indicative of a change of heart towards our neighbor. Sometimes I wonder whether we really believe that. But we need to stop and reflect, seriously. Stop and search deep within our souls until we can see the full implication of what it means to love the Lord our God. Because it's absolutely a matter of faith. That love of God and love of neighbor are inseparable. And then God will know we love Him even before we tell Him. To be full of love, that's been called the most radical thought that has ever entered into the mind of mankind. When we look around and see all the people who are searching for meaning in life, all the vain attempts to find identity in this fickle world, all the desperate struggles to possess enduring love and acceptance, maybe we're seeing people who've never really heard the truth of those 5 words. There is no difficulty that love cannot conquer. No disease that enough love will not heal. No door that enough love will not open. No gulf that enough love will not bridge. And no wall that enough love will not throw down. No sin that enough love will not redeem. It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only we could love enough, we'd be the happiest, most powerful people in the world. To experience salvation and know that we're redeemed. To be free to become the creative masterpieces that God needs us to be. We have to show the depth of our love for God and the depth of our love for one another. It is at the same time so desperately, desperately hard. From her remarkable story, Angel Without Wings, the author Jane Vonnegut-Yarmolinsky, she was a sister of Kurt Vonnegut, the famous author, She writes of the tragic death of her brother-in-law who perished in a freak train accident. And just 36 hours after his death, his wife would die of cancer, leaving the 3 small children without parents. And in the following passage from her book, Angels Without Wings, the author writes of her quiet moments in reflection following the double tragedy and the new responsibilities that she and her husband were facing. She wrote, "My thoughts slowly evolved, changing from a confrontation with death to a confrontation with the lives ahead, young lives that had been hurt and broken. They needed to be mended, and I needed to do what I could. I had no idea where the energy was going to come from to do all the things that needed to be done, to meet the gaping emotional needs created by the double tragedy. But suddenly I did have the energy, and I found myself doing those things without even questioning the right way. Many years went by before I could identify the source of that energy, could put a name to it. I had simply come face to face with love, ultimate, unconditional love. She had come face to face with God. That grace touched her life to face what she needed to face. And she did it well, with love and goodness and grace. We come face to face with God right in this Eucharist to give us the strength to do what we're called to do. Some of us here bear heavy burdens of love. And you know in your own life what that is. It is possible for the strength not only to get up under the crushing weight, or get up under the little